again for being here with us today, sir.
Sure.
To introduce the guest or the speaker of this session today, I am introducing I'm introducing Mr. Anjan Kumar, who is currently the Assistant Principal Research Insights at IQVIA Bangalore. Sir is responsible for the proposal development, end-to-end execution, and management of projects and resource management regarding the development of ensuring seamless delivery and quality deliverables. He has close to 18 years of work experience with the industry in pharmaceutical research and analytical space. And he developed methodologies for disease burden estimation, leveraging literature review, creating competitor organization structure within a country using information from the public domain. Sir completed Masters in Business Administration and also Masters in Pharmaceutical Sciences from JSS University, Mysore. He is also having a diploma degree in clinical research. His areas of expertise include market assessment and landscaping, integrated desk research, epidemiological estimates, literature review, competitive intelligence, and many more. With this brief introduction, I welcome Mr. Anjan Kumar onto this platform and hand him over the platform so that he can continue with the session. Sir, please.
Thank you. You're able to hear me, right? Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we are able to hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Raghava, for giving my brief, and thanks to college as well as the Dr. Ravi for giving me an opportunity for today for today's presentation. Okay, shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Great. I'll share my screen. Okay, so I already told you, like, the topic when it comes to HEOR, it's whenever we talk about any specific presentation, we always champion that presentation, right? Or the topic. So my topic is actually HERO, not hero. Okay, so nothing but health economics and outcome research, horizons, and driving value in pharma consulting. Okay, clear? And if you have any specific questions at any moment, please ask me. Clear? Whatever I am aware about it and how much I am experienced with it, definitely I try to solve it. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So before getting into the exact HEOR, that is health economics and outcome research, we need to understand certain terminology. So it's very important for us to know to get into that next level. So health economics. So when it comes to economics, it's general. It's knowing the inflation rates, GDP changes, and macroeconomics, microeconomics. The typical way it comes to health economics, it is nothing but assessing the financial impact of healthcare interventions, which includes cost effectiveness, budget impact, and pricing. So assessing all these parameters will come under health economics, and comes to outcome research. It's nothing but outcomes of that particular economics research, measures the impact of treatment on a patient's health, of quality of life, and real world outcomes. Okay. So before getting into that depth of the topic, I would like to emphasize on the product life cycle. So most of you are already aware about it, right? Is it okay if people can talk in between? Can be a bit of interaction.
I hope the audience are still muted, sir, but it's okay. They can type their questions if
Okay,
needed.
fine,
And since you mentioned,
fine,
I
no
think
problem.
they can.
Thanks, Raghu. So yeah, this is a typical product life cycle, and each and every things which comes to market or to the world, it has certain life cycle, the way that human beings have life. So each and every product has life cycle, and this is a typical product life cycle in pharmaceutical industry. When it comes to electronic items, it has different. So we call that as S curve. So initially it goes to very high stage, that goes to a maturity phase very early, and because of the competition or anything happens, it declines very drastically. So usually it happens in electronic items. Let's say iPhone 17 has come up, and when it comes to iPhone 16, definitely the sales has gone down, and it has a typical patient pool. I won't say patient pool. It's a typical what I call it, the target pool. So in that way as well, the pharmaceutical products has its own life cycle. It commences with early phase, the middle phase, and the late phase. And then usually we see that is in early phase, that's preclinical 1, 2, 3. And when it comes to middle phase, we call that as like introductory phase, growth phase, maturity phase, decline phase. And the latent phase is nothing but the generic entries where the competition comes up. And it varies from disease to disease and product to product. That we need to remember. So why I put this slide in between, it's very important for us to understand, because HEOR, health economics and outcome research. So each and everywhere we always estimate through budget. How much budget I have it, how many patients I can recruit for the specific disease, and what are the different locations which I can look for it when it comes to clinical trials. So each and every parameter, it will be coming under the specific budgets and the revenue. So product life cycle is very important for each and every product. So it will be predicted before enter into that market. So it's important for a pharmacist to understand which phase I'm going to support to the particular pharmaceutical clients, and where it will be available and how it will be applied with the competition. Clear? Okay. So we are talking about health economics outcome research, and the randomized clinical trials came in between. It's different, right? So I'll explain to the situation. So if you want to compare from one product to the another product or any specific situation, we always compare from one section to the another section. Imagine a doctor comes with a query. So I have a particular patient for anti-tuberculosis, and these are all the specific drugs which are, I'm just giving the situation, hypothetical situation. So these are all the different drugs which are available in the market. Which drugs I can go for it? Let's say with the way that like A, B, C, you have three drugs, and out of three drugs, which one to be considered and which situation, how I'm going to treat with the patients. So it's very typical, right? These are the typical queries which we get it into the treatment life cycles of a particular patient. So even doctors also face that. When this type of queries comes up, where do you get this information? How do you get this information? This is a typical scenario where the pharmacists who are in the rounds which face. Agreed or not agreed? Okay, fine. Yes, you can. Anyone can answer it. I don't
Agreed,
mind.
agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So we always compare in this particular situation. We need to follow a certain things which are already available or existed. Usually it will be from the clinical trials, right? So in a pharmaceutical industry, clinical trials happens, and from the clinical trials only the product comes to market. So until unless somebody talks about in the clinical trials what has been done with the drug E or B or C, so we are not able to give any decision to the doctors or the end users. And to go to that direction, we always rely upon the clinical trials. Within the clinical trial, the gold standard clinical trials consider to be as randomized clinical trials, right? Because we are comparing from one product to the another product, or comparing standard of treatment to the new product, and what is the particular patient groups, whether it's a controlled group or the cross control group, triple blinded or multiple blinds or single, most of the things comes up. So usually pharmaceutical industries always try to conduct randomized clinical trials until unless if it is required, because it's time consuming, and also it's very expensive, and also it's not easy to recruit patients with the typical I would say the characteristics. So always conducting a clinical trials in the specific section or the specific situation is always difficult. So that's why we have to rely upon the other alternative parameters, which I can get this information in a suitable way. Clear? Okay. So when it comes to HEOR, certain parameters which will be fed into that HEOR, that's health economics and outcome research. It's a typical process, I would say, that to conduct that certain parameters which need to be fed in. So what are those particular parameters? We need to be very clear with the terminologies. Okay, that's nothing but called real world data, real world insights, and real world evidence. I'll explain about real world data. So these are the specific data which has been collected from non-conventional clinical trials. Clear? So usually the earlier process is considered to be as a clinical trials, and until unless we conduct the clinical trials, it doesn't allow to regulatory to go for the approval process. Now we're talking about RWD. Yes, these are all the specific data which has been collected from conventional randomized clinical trials. Not okay. not collected from conventional randomized control trials. Where all those particular situations where you are going to get this data or how you're going to get the data, that's a different situation. But what are all the different sources where you get the data? It's nothing but electronic health records, claims data, patient registries, mortality data, consumer data, registries. Are you able to see the complete screen? I need to present the complete video.
Yes, sir. We can see the complete screen.
Complete screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Let me try this with it. Is it better? It's same thing, right? No difference.
No, sir.
Okay,
Actually, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
okay. Thanks. Yeah, so these are all the different data sources from where we collect this data, which is nothing but in conventional, not collected from the conventional randomized clinical trials. Clear? Okay. Now, these are the specific data sources I'll talk about in the next section also, like how that, what are the specific data sets and everything. So when it comes to real world insights, these are all the specific insights generated from the real world data, the collected from the non-clinical trials to provide an insights considering or leveraging certain commercial analytics data. It can be statistical analytical models or economic models. These are the specific situations or these are the specific insights called real world insights. Okay. Now moving to real world evidence. Not much difference from insights. However, these insights have been developed intending to specific, I would say, the target groups. Intention to support claim or belief to produce evidence for multiple stakeholders. Make sense? You're just going to generate the insights from the data, that is real world insights. However, when it comes to real world evidence, you will have a particular target group. Based on that, you're going to generate the insights. Clear? There is a difference, slight difference. Imagine a situation where I wanted to know how many patients are suffering. Let's say the best example will be the diabetes. How many patients are suffering from diabetes with obesity? Or how many patients have obesity with diabetes? It's a unique difference, right? And without conducting the clinical trials, it's very difficult for me to identify that level. When I'm talking about clinical trial, it can be survey also. I need to conduct that particular, I need to go to that specific sample, I need to do a specific sampling process and collect the data to suggest, okay, this many obesity patients have this many proportions of diabetes and this much of diabetes patients will have the proportions of obesity. It's very difficult to conduct. So that's why when it goes to evidence, it has a unique target group. Based on that, insights will be generated. Done? Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay, great. Fine. So when it comes to HEOR or integration of RWD, how it is going to helpful for the pharmaceutical industries, I would say into the specific situation. Why do we need to conduct that? How that will be helpful? So definitely randomized clinical trials are very, very expensive and we need to find out an alternative process to minimize the budget or minimize the revenue spent from a pharmaceutical industry. Hence this HEOR came into that situation. And how it's going to helpful for? It helps in decision making, evidence on the value, safety and effectiveness of the healthcare interventions to inform policy decisions and pricing and reimbursement decisions as well. Okay, supports decision making. Now, demonstrate real world impacts, complements clinical trials, offering insights into how treatments perform. This is a typical situation. So to understand whether drug A will be efficacious or drug B, definitely we have to rely upon the clinical trials. And this clinical trials conducting each and every time, it's very expensive. If I go into the direction of what all been done in the publications, it's very easier for me, right? So this is a typical way what how we solve the query for the doctors. That's why. So these are the specific process which we call that as like HEOR, that is complements clinical trials and offering insights into how treatments perform. Next, enhances patient-centered care. So earlier, doctor, like patient goes to the doctor and doctor treats them, or in certain situations, if they are not able to treat, they send that patient to the referral units or next specialist. Typical process called patient journey. In the patient journey, everything is focused on patient, not on doctors, nurse, or the pharmacist in certain situations. Agreed? Because we are always treating the patients and patient aesthetics is more important. When you call that as a patient aesthetics, what exactly they are looking for it? It's very much important for us to understand. Based on that only the formulations will be dealt with. Earlier we have only IV, now the subcutaneous also come up. Because of, like, after that it also moved to oral formulations as well. Why these changes are happening? Why the pharmaceutical industry is moving towards that? And how do they come to know that that's lucrative, and bringing to the patients with the patient aesthetics is always helpful for them, the business, as well as attracting the patients? Correct. So it is enhancing the patient centered care. It will be get from HEOR only. And market access and adoptions. So market access is very much important in pharmaceutical industry. Without knowing how many patients will be using my medication, bringing that product to the market is very difficult, and I'm not able to do my business decisions. Let's say this much of money has been spent for this particular product, and this product is going to gain this much. How am I able to decide on it? How many patients are suffering from the disease, and how this particular patients will evolve in the future, and how my competition would come into that market, and if the competition comes in, how much share that particular product what I have currently will take up, whether I am going to deal with the first line product or the second line product or the third line, which combinations I'm dealing with it. Lot of changes comes up, right, before coming into that market. We, when we are talking as a pharmacist, when we go to the drones for with the doctors, when they talk about like which combinations can be given, we just give the regimens in oncology. How that regimens has been dealt with, why that particular regimens has been dealt with, lot of research goes behind. Correct. So these are all things which comes up with HEOR, that comes with market access and adoptions level. Okay. Somebody's chatting. Is this a question? Okay, fine.
No, sir, that's not a question.
Okay, sorry. Okay, fine. So optimizes resource utilization again. Like how many patients will be there in the particular unit, and let's say the clinical unit, and which country will have more patients, and how many standardized units which I need to plan for it, or in certain situations which country have more prevalent population or the incident population. I'm talking about epidemiological levels, and why they have, what biomarkers they have. So these are all the specific things which comes up with HEOR. Clear? Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay, great. So these are all the components of HEOR. So we talked about what you mean by health economics and outcome research, what is the utilization of health that is HEOR, and how do we do that? And why do we do that? We have understood. How do we do that? What are the different components of HEOR? It's nothing but patient reported outcomes, and it's nothing but outcomes will be measured without healthcare provider interpretations. So where it will be used? For simple pain scale, we always ask for the patient, right? Are you are you getting your symptoms better with any of the specific situations? Yes or no? Right? So these are all called patient reported outcomes. And patient reported outcomes, usually we get it from HEOR reports. I'll talk about like how we do that exactly. And not necessary to conduct the clinical trials always. Right? These patient reported outcomes. Quality of life assessments. This is very, very qualitative. So if any patient have any specific disease, it's very difficult to suggest them how it is going to get into the quality of life until unless which I have a proper scale to measure them. Because one patient, it's like a simple, if you take it with osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, how many joints has been affected? Okay, how many joints has been affected? That is a clinical symptom or a clinical sign. But when it comes to the quality of life, how many joints has been affected because of that particular person is not able to perform the daily activities? We just call that as joints. And the patient is working in a particular place where it will be a sitting job. So hands are good then. So quality of life is not impacted at all. So only the legs has been impacted. It would be an initial stage. So the quality of life will be very difficult to assess it, right? So certain situations when you're talking about which type of symptoms we are talking about it and what type of quality of life we are talking about, it's very important. So quality of life assessments are very, very important, and this all been, most of the assessments will be conducted through a medical records. I'll talk about the next situation. This will be helpful from HEOR. And also the drugs, the new drugs which is coming up into the market, or the drugs which are already available in the market, how that will be efficacious or how the safety parameters has been conducted. Most of the things will be conducted from the patients directly. Okay. Next is cost effectiveness analysis. So it is a relative cost. How product A is better than product B, and in terms of cost. So in oncology, it is a typical situation, right? So doctor has to treat with regimen 1 and regimen 2, and the situation comes up. How do we need to decide on it? Regimen A is good or regimen B is good? So we need to assess that particular patient regimens with a certain parameters. That parameters called attributes. That attributes can be the age factor, the patient stay in the hospital, the frequency of the drugs, and the type of side effects which the patient dealt with. So these are all the specific attributes which we decide on it. Based on that, we provide, so drug A regimen is better than drug B. So definitely they will ask why. The question might come up. Okay, do you have that regimens available readily in your pharmacy? That's why you're giving me an answer to that. Yes, that also would have been come up from the doctors. So we need to go with the specific situation to suggest them which drugs are better in terms of what. Until unless you defend your mechanism, nobody would accept it. To go into that direction of defending mechanism, you should have a proper data. So HEOR always provides that level of information. Next, budget impact and real world evidence. So based on the retrospective databases analysis and systemic reviews, we are able to provide that budget impacts. For example, giving a vaccination to the patient, how many patients you are going to, I would say, avoid getting that infection in the future. If that infection happens to that patient, how much the country has to spend for it, right? So this is a typical type of analysis. Usually we work for it. That is budget impact and real world evidence groups. Okay. Health technology assessments. This is direct to provide assessing the giving the information on direct and intended impacts or its indirect and intended consequences, knowing the side effects of the product, comparison from one product to the another product. For reimbursement mechanisms, HTA assessments are more important and very, very important on the current situation, because in most of the European countries, or I would say the US, so always go for reimbursement because the country spends most of their money on the healthcare sector. When they're talking about healthcare sector, which drug they need to be given to the patient? There are many competitors. There are many class of drugs, and there are many, I would say, the biomarker products which are available currently, which would be given to the patient for the best treatment options, and how much they need to spend. And if they spend with drug A, how much they are going to spend, I would say, in terms of side effects or in terms of other parameters, how much they are going to spend, save in the future. So it's completely savings. If you're not able to earn, definitely we need to save at least, right? So health technology assessments comes under that level. And comparative effectiveness research, it is nothing but the most suitable ones for the specific population. It is important to understand, let's say the adult population has already been come up into that market. If I wanted to bring it to the pediatric population, have I conducted the clinical trials considering the certain parameters which would mimic for the pediatric population? Do I need to conduct the pediatric population studies again? Do I have an alternative to conduct to that level to understand, okay, these are the specific parameters which are common for the pediatric as well as the adult? Or even if I go with the adults, what would be the best situation which I'm able to think about it? So these are the specific effectiveness research also which will be conducted. Clear? So these are the components of HEOR. Any questions till now? No? Fine.
No, sir.
Great. Thanks. So please don't hesitate. Whatever my experience and whatever the things which I am aware about it on the topic, definitely I try to solve it. Clear? Okay, fine. Data sources for RWE, and which I already explained to you about the non-conventional clinical trials or the non-conventional data which has been collected from the clinical trials. Okay, these are the specific parameters. So for example, lab parameters or the lab biomarkers data, which very much these are all the specific biomarkers that are very much important on the current situation. Imagine you need not to conduct the study to understand how many patients are suffering from that biomarkers, right? Directly, if you go to a laboratory, that too, it's an important laboratory which collects the data from most of the hospitals or most of the patients. If they go to that extent to conduct how many biomarker tests which would have been happened in the particular time period, what are those particular biomarkers? You are able to estimate the type of or the number of biomarkers which are present for the tumor type, right? It's easier. So that's a typical one. Next, mortality. So it's also very important, though it is not very much lucrative to look into that mortality data for pharmaceutical industry, because we always tend to increase the lifespan of the patients and ease the health of the patients. However, mortality happens. When it comes to mortality, why it happened, for what reason? This is very much important for us to look for it. If any, if the patient would have been hospitalized and the mortality happens, on what basis? Because insurance claims, everything will be dependent upon the mortality reasons. Okay. Social media data, very typical, right? Everyone uses social media platforms now. Many platforms are available. Facebook is one of that, Twitter is one of that, or X. Many platforms are available. So social media data, how it will be helpful? It's difficult to predict, right? So we always look from the patient behaviors. When we're talking about the patient behaviors or the social nuggets, what we call that as social nuggets are nothing but, let's say, the new product is about to come into that market. Social media, patients talks about it. Okay, the new product is coming into that market. How that will be helpful for me? So definitely they do a lot of research. Awareness is improving at the physician's levels, at the pharmacist level, and even at the user or the patient level also, to tap that information, how patients are enthusiastic looking at this information or looking at this particular product, how this information is moving towards that. And nowadays Instagram or YouTube or everywhere, this or the specific changes which are coming up with awareness, how this awareness are catching up the different medias for the patients. This is the typical digital media which is improving. So that's why social media is very important nowadays, and tapping that information will be very important to understand the importance of the patients on the specific treatments or any treatment, I would say that, or disease as well. So earlier it was a stigma in HIV, but nowadays the patients are coming out of the stigma, and they just talk about what are the alternative ways which they can help them out to survive, right? And this is the way that pharmaceutical industries are tapping in, provide awareness to them, and gets into clinical trials and supports them. Okay. Next, pharmacy data, hospital data, claims data. So very clear, right? So any information which has been collected at pharmacy data, which indications and how many medications has been prescribed with, and is there any side effects sometimes, and what disease area. So these are all the specific information which will be collected at the pharmacy data. And when it comes to hospital data, it is unique and complete information will be provided to the data. What age group, marital status as well, certain situations, depression, for example, for depression, um, when the patient comes to the hospital, the patient has come themselves or somebody has admitted to the hospital. So this is a typical type of information comes into that hospital data. And now we always talk about like this particular product has been discontinued. Why? Certain side effects will be covered, right? Where they have covered, when they have covered, and when it comes to that particular side effects, how that information has been dealt at the hospital level. And if the side effects happen from that particular product A, which product has been shifted, whether product B or product C? It's called switch, repeats. This all the typical data which will be covered from hospital data. Very much important for us to understand if the specific product has been considered for the treatment purpose, whether they continue the treatment for specified time period or they change it in between. It's called longitudinal data. Okay. Claims data, it's very much important for insurance departments, on what basis the claims has been happened, why that claim happened, whether it's that like we goes to the hospital for any medical ailment. So they give, okay, if you have been covered with insurance, this much will be covered, only 80% or copay, certain things comes up. Within that 80%, what are the specific treatments which will be covered? We need to be very clear with it. Okay, it's for like prostate cancer or the prostate gland, it's only for BPH. So certain type of procedures, it's just x-ray, it just costs 100 to 400 rupees, right? 400 to 500 rupees, whether that will be covered or not. So the patient used to talk about like, okay, on this particular insurance plans, it is not covered until unless you have been admitted to the hospital for a day. To admission for the hospital for a day, what are the specific elements, certain rules and regulations which comes up. So claims data is very much important to understand what are the specific claims happened for which disease and which indication on what conditions. Okay. Prospective and enriched studies, nothing but the retrospective studies which has been already been published, or any specific prospective ways or the clinical trials which are going to happen. This sort of specific information. Again, the electronic medical and health records. So whatever the information which has been collected at hospital data, if that has been digitalized at electronic medical records, and that electronic medical records have been covered from multiple hospitals and at stage at one place, you can do n number of analysis with it, right? In which hospital, what type of patients are more accessible, and what type of I would say, within that particular hospital, who prescribes what, right? So to that extent, they can go for it. Registries, yes, these are all the specific registries, like for example, hospital registries. And in India, we have like Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai, and in Bangalore, it's Kidwai. And if you go to Assam, it's Dibrugarh. There are certain registries which covers only the specific type of patients, and these are the specific registries which will be covered at the national level. So if anyone talks about how many cancer patients are in India, so these are all the specific registries which provides the data to the national level. So when it comes to the situation, okay, all this, some you might have experienced in your hospitals also, attached hospitals also, some oncology patients will be treated. How they have been covered, correct? So these are all the specific registries which covers most of the hospitals or the major hospitals where the patients will be covered or treated. Clear? Consumer data, it's unique. Uh, I'm not getting any questions, right? Okay. So the consumer data, like it is a typical information where the consumer, it can be like OTC, the over-the-counter products. In certain non-prescribed products are also considered to be an over-the-counter. For example, rabies vaccine. So anyone can buy it. Definitely, the doctors has to be administered with it. But in pharmacies, in the Indian context, definitely I can buy it as well. So it is part of consumer data, but it doesn't comes under consumer data. So that's why it falls under the pharmacy data, where the rabies vaccine will be considered. Getting? So in consumer data, usually it's a consumables. It can be like medical equipments, or the medical devices, or even with the hospital solutions, I would say that. So these are all the specific points, or the specific, like it's a cotton gauze, or the surgical tapes. So this data comes under consumer data. If it goes to nutraceuticals, a lot of things comes up, like the protein powder, simple protein powder comes under the consumer data. Okay. Wearables, now everyone using the digital, we are adopting to the digital levels. So these are all the situations where certain data points which will be covered from the wearables, smartwatches, smart apps. Okay. Clinical outcome assessments are nothing but the clinical trial updates. Done. So different data sources other than the clinical trials, which I'm able to get most of the information, and how the data will be helpful for the different situations, you know that. So we'll talk about in the different sections where this particular type of data or the typical type of data will be utilized. Okay. Any questions at this moment? Anything? Okay. So in IQVIA, we have expertise in social data, pharmacy data, hospital data, and claims data. So definitely we do prospective and enriched studies analysis. However, we don't have the database with it. We have to rely upon certain databases which are already available. Let's say PubMed, Vovid, Micromedics. So these are all the specific data sources where we rely upon the publications for the relevant sections. Okay, so like we collect the actual claims data, hospital data, and pharmacy data, and the place where we can do that. And for social media data analysis, we have a certain platforms from the third party, and we do analyze the data for the specific sections or the specific parameters, and certain data sources and registries which has already been covered within the social media data, where the data analysis will be crunched or done. Clear? Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Continue. Please continue.
Thank you. Sure. Fine. So HEOR and RW services, it's a unique, probably health economics and outcome research in pharmacy field, definitely, especially in the pharmacy practice, we learn and go through on a regular basis. But when it comes to HEOR, these are the specific process or the I would say, the technology which has been adopted in most of the pharmaceutical industries just to minimize their efforts. Okay, so when it comes to services, most of the pharmaceutical companies rely upon this type of agencies or companies where they get this type of services, and the services are not limited. Many companies have unique services, and many services provide multiple services. Okay, so what are the type of services? It can be systematic reviews, strategic literature reviews, meta-analysis, and epidemiology reviews. So, any questions at this moment? Do you understand the difference between systematic reviews and strategic literature reviews? Anyone have any questions? Please, you can don't hesitate to ask. Everyone is clear about it, right? So it's not to meant for just showing what you meant by HEOR. It is an please consider this as an like learning program for HEOR, because HEOR is doing a lot of things in the world and the market, and especially providing best services for the pharmaceutical industries. And from the pharmaceutical industries only we survive indirectly. Okay, so if you have any specific points to understand or no, please don't hesitate. Okay, you can stop it anytime. So what's the time now? Okay, cool. Fine. So when it comes to real world data, it's observational studies, registry studies, medical records analysis, patient chart reviews, social media analysis. Okay, so medical records, imagine you have a medical records data with you from multiple hospitals, and from that data you can suggest what is the epidemiology of that particular disease, those who have been admitted to the hospital. Or in the certain situations you might talk about like within the particular time period how many patients have been admitted to the hospital. It has changed a major role in COVID situation. How many patients have COVID, how many patients have been admitted to the hospital. It's been recorded only from the EMR parts or EHR reports. Done. When it comes to observational studies, let's say the PET scan is better than CT scan. And within that CT scan, Tesla 3, Tesla 2, or Tesla 1, which one is better? So it's always dependent upon the observational studies and how much important you are going to predict with that particular observations. That's from the observational studies point. Patient chart reviews, typical what we do it in the hospital on a regular basis in the medical rounds. So whether when you read that particular chart reviews, why that particular product has been, let's say you have not been gone to the rounds in the evening, and some duty doctor has changed that product. So until unless if they don't mention why they have changed it, you should not allow to go to that next level, right? It would be biased or it would be unbiased also. So patient chart reviews are very much important to understand the reason behind why that particular product changes happened, or why there is importance for them to continue the product. For simple example, mannitol, usually used for epilepsy patients and acute ischemia patients. So mannitol should not be used after 24 hours. We know that, right? If we use after 24 hours, it would lead to rebound effect. Why it lead to rebound effect? Based on some studies only, right? That's very much important for us to understand. If we are defending that mechanism, if we write that, like if the doctor might have been ignored and the patient would have been treated with more than 24 hours, so definitely we intervene it based on the knowledge. How we got that knowledge? Based on the studies which has already been done. From that studies, the textbooks would have been written, the Kodak Kimball, right? The case studies, the newer versions. Make sense? So these are all the specific places where we can collect this information and provide that insights. Next, going to the economic analysis, cost effectiveness analysis, budget impact analysis, HTS, that is health technology assessments, global value decisions. Okay. And when it comes to market access, it is healthcare system research, payer process mapping, price governance systems, market landscaping, payer research. So these are all the specific services which HEOR related specific companies provides services to the pharmaceutical industries, and each and every services will have a different value for the pharmaceutical product life cycle where they wanted to get into that services. Clear? So that's why I brought in the product life cycle. Each and everywhere they are going to use these services. Next, where this particular HEOR will be helpful. So I already explained about the product life cycle. It is considered in discovery phase, drug development, proof of concept, optimized, and even in the post launch as well. Okay, so when it comes to discovery phase, it's a rapid hypothesis and generation. Sorry. So in discovery phase, it's rapid hypothesis generations and data mining process to understand how many patients will be available for the clinical trials also. The HEOR will be helpful. And when it comes to drug development, predictive feasibility analysis, data-driven patient recruitments, informed site selections, enhanced forecasting and resource planning. Okay, proof of concept, it's optimized protocol designs, real-time inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria, adaptive design scenarios, clinical trial designing. It's very important for us to understand when you when the students goes to a clinical trials, it's very important. It's not only CRA or CRC. In certain situations, we always go into the back end of the clinical trials, like how do you design the clinical trials? It's very important to understand it, right? So in certain syllabus, we are not able to make out that. So to go into that direction of how do we need to design, when do we need to design the typical type of clinical trials, it's in-depth analysis. That will be statisticians and the typical domain expertise which will be applied with the help of HEOR. Okay. Next, coming to post-launch, evidence-based decisions, label expansion analysis, safety surveillance metrics, value-based pricing, reassess pricing post-launches. Okay. Any questions?
No, sir.
Fine. Okay. For each and every topic, it has evolution. Even HEOR has gone through evolutions, and earlier it was volume based searches. So now it is moving towards the value based care models, emphasizing patient outcomes and cost effectiveness. Okay, and now the regulatory is also accepting the HEOR studies which has been conducted from the data, not only from the typical clinical trials. Okay, so that's the evolution, that's the changes from HEOR. And digital health and precision medicines like big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and digital health tools in HEOR studies are also gaining the I would say the traction in from HEOR. So being a pharma consultant, we need to get adapt to the new methodologies and policies which has been adopted and effectively supports the clients in HEOR. Agreed? Fine. So just typical process for market access and strategic alignment. It always helps for market access with payer expectations and healthcare priorities, and evidence-based reimbursement supports, cost effectiveness models, and economic dossier preparations support reimbursements in for formulary inclusions. So there also the HEOR is playing a major role. Stakeholder engagement and policy adoptions. Yes, early engagement with stakeholders and proactive planning and adaptive evolving health policies. Yes, HEOR is helping in the market access area. Achieving sustainable market entry, strategic alignment facilities, market entry, favorable pricing, and long-term patient access. Okay. And economic model and value communications. So we talk about HEOR, and we have looked into the different data sources. From that particular data sources, how we build into a particular insights. So it is comes under economic modeling or the value communication tools. So economic data has been developed or collected, which will be dealt and analyzed with the particular statistical models to provide an insights for a better decision makings. Clear? Stakeholder engagement, how it works, it communicate value transparently to the payers. Because imagine if you conduct a clinical trials, definitely will tell how many patients will be available in drug arm A, drug arm B, and what are the specific side effects, and you transparently talk about it. Now, when you don't conduct a clinical trials, you're just analyzing the data. How are you doing the data? Typical process which you followed, but not working on the recruitment process. Correct? If you're looking at the retrospective data in the sense medical health records or through EMRs or chart reviews, you're looking at the multiple data samples, considering for the specific evidence and providing that analysis. Definitely anyone can accept it, and it's not been manipulated, right? So definitely the health industry or the regulatory industry which accepts it. And stakeholder engagement, if you go to the doctor and suggest like this is particular database, or in your hospital itself, we have conducted this study and suggested that drug A is more preferred than drug B, is there any particular reason? So definitely they will talk about it's my practice field. Or the new doctors wanted to plan for new drugs, the new adoptive drugs. So how you're going to talk about it? So this is the way that this particular data sets or the data sources will helpful for stakeholder engagement, cost effectiveness analysis, the best treatment options which you're going to give it for your patients through HEOR only. Clear? And consultant's contribution, being a pharmacist, we need to develop tailored economic models as simple as much possible, not the black box that data will be input and the output will be get into that. If you're not able to defend your mechanism, it's black box, though the black box color is actually orange. So we call that as black box in aircraft or the aeronautics area. So this is the way that we call that as, like, without any black box, if you do any analysis which is easier to understand for the layman people, so that is a way that we need to contribute to the market or the HEOR industries. Clear? Next, patient reported outcomes is the only way which we can get it from through HEOR reports. And conducting the clinical trial just for the quality of life, it's very expensive, right? Imagine you need to conduct the clinical trials which has already been on the treatment or recruiting and going to the logistics and assessing those particular quality of life questionnaires through a different patients for a particular clinical trial is very difficult, very expensive. So it's not possible. Hence, this is the particular points which has been added in the clinical trials itself to adjust, understand and narrate the story in the future. How this also helpful for the patients. For depression, how are you going to talk about the treatment efficacy? Not possible, right? Until unless patient responds to your questions or responds to your points, then only you are able to suggest, yes, this is an antidepressant which is helping the patient. Measures are very important, each and every section. So patient reported outcomes are very important. Health technology assessments again comes with the patient reported, because if any patient talks about, I am not getting the efficiency or the efficacy of that product after this much of time, definitely regulatory agency or the reimbursement agency doesn't go for it. It's patient driven, not the efficacy driven, always. Okay. And HTA submissions will always help with the analyzing the data and ensuring compliance and requirements for the worldwide and enhancing market access. Same situation with the HTA as well, patient reported outcomes. Okay. And in pharmaceutical industry, we always look for real world evidence data, which is nothing but the different data sources where we get it. Regulatory recognition is happening with the regulatory recognitions also from the data sources, HEOR reports, which is coming up. And pharma consulting are able to decrease their budgets, increase their revenue at earlier stages. Okay, with the help of multiple economic models or the strategic models, value propositions for payers as well, and driving informed decisions. You are able to provide a proper depending mechanism with a specific way of analyzing the data to suggest that insights. Clear? Now, so we always talk about like artificial intelligence. Will artificial intelligence improve the healthcare sector? Yes. Is it be helpful for the pharmaceutical or the pharmaceutical consultants who are working in the industry? Yes. No, if you don't adapt to that technology or adapt to that methodology. Yes, definitely if you go with the AI. And doesn't mean that AI will help you with everything. Without the human intervention, doesn't happen with everything. For simple example, for SAR, we have a software, structure activity relationships in chemistry. Earlier, they used to do with multiple iterations with that molecule to get into the desired effect. Now, we have multiple data sources with the specific structures. If you change a particular structure, a desired effects, desired, yeah, multiple effects will be given within the software. This is nothing but an artificial intelligence. And these are the softwares which has been developed based on the data which has already been conducted. Let's say if I add OH group to the phenyl, like let's say paraposition or the metaposition, and this is the way that structure would have been done, or the cell lines in biopharmaceutical products. So most of the things will be desired. So what it will predict, that's the future. If you are able to predict what are the different desired effects which is happening in the future, there it comes the AI. And definitely it gives you an idea what would be the different desired efficacious parameters which can be predicted from the particular structure. That's great, correct? So that's the way that AI is helping the pharmaceutical industries, and we have to adopt with it and we have to learn with it. Definitely we have to validate it, and AI doesn't replace human beings immediately, But if we don't know, and if we don't know how to use that AI, it would be a possibility. Okay, and intelligence enhancing HEOR analysis, artificial for machine learning improvements happening, and accurate predictions and personalized insights. So there are certain tools and artificial intelligence models which are available in the market, or which has been developed in the country, or it's in progress, where this many patients are suffering from the disease based on what parameters, signs and symptoms, based on the biomarkers and everything. They are also predicting the future of identifying how many diseases or how many patients would get into this disease. That is called predictive analytics, and that predictive analytics coming from the artificial intelligence. Okay, so still in progress, and it would reach up. So you might have heard about the news, right? Okay, so the new gene has been developed or identified, and this gene will be predicting for the future tumor types. There are certain tests which are already been in market or in place. If you conduct this particular test once in 2 years, you are able to identify whether you are going to get the disease or not. How smart we are in, right? We have to adapt to that situation. And global harmonization of HTA. So health technology assessments are very expensive, and with respect to the HEOR, they are able to go into that level of effective HTA submissions and expansions of real world. So earlier we have only few data sources which we are looking at it. Now we have variables also, and since 6 years or 10 years ago, that variables was not at all existed, and now most of the people are using that variables. It can be smart apps or smart watches or simple smart pins also, which the diabetes patients which will be given with the smart pins, where they need to attach with it, or even the infusion pumps. And the infusion pumps suggest for the patients when to change their solution for peritoneal dialysis. Smart, right? I need not to check whether the color of the dialysis urine has been changed or not. So that predicts always. That gives me an app, and that gives me a message. So indirectly, if I tap into that information, I'm going to get it, like how many people are using peritoneal dialysis, how many people are actually going for the dialysis, and within the dialysis, what type of media they are using it, what type of candles they are using on it. Everything I'm able to get it at one levels, right? This is called expansion real data. Okay, fine. Any questions till now? This is my last slide.
We're actually saving the questions for the end of the session, sir, so that we
Oh,
won't
okay. Sorry.
disturbing you.
Fine. Fine.
We
Great.
won't be
Great.
disturbing you in the middle of your presentation.
No problem. No problem. Fine. Fine. Thanks a lot. Fine. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. And this is my last slide, so that just explanation of it.
Um, I would prefer, I mean, like the way in which we are practicing is that we'll allow the speaker to finish off his session so that we can take the QA at the end.
Okay, great. Fine. I'll close this slide as well. And these are all the specific products which got approved or got into the next level using HW and RW services. If you understood what you mean by HW and RW services, you will get the complete picture. For example, like entricitinib or erdafitinib and Vijoice have been approved based on clinical efficacy. RW to support clinical efficacy. And when it comes to blinatumomab, it's been actually approved based on the retrospective data. Clear? Not on the exact clinical trials. So avelumab using health records, electronic health records, and these are the specific examples which we look into that market, which has already been got through the non-conventional clinical trials, data sources, analysis to bring these particular products into the market. Okay, fine. Okay, so I have completed my presentation. Go with your questions.
Thank you, sir. Before I ask my questions, I would like to ask the questions that were posted to us. So there was a question from one of our participant, Geeta Vani. She's asking, how does real RWZE differ from that of RCT?
RWD differ from
RCT.
RCT. Yes, yes. So conducting clinical trials, randomized clinical trials, I would say that. let's say it's a typical process. We identify the particular indication or the disease. I have my molecule. If I go with the discovery phase, like I have my molecule and I know that that is a particular indication which that molecule is going to target for it. And for that particular purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to conduct different I'll identify the different sites. If you go with the clinical trials, I'll conduct the different sites and the countries where I wanted to launch my product. There were the rules that if I wanted to, let's say in India, if not in India in specific, if I wanted to bring my product to Asia Pacific, so one of the Asia countries should have the clinical trial sites. So because they need to understand the genetical difference or the racial difference, so identify the countries, identify the particular sites, identify the specific clinical trial parameters which I need to look for it, and conduct the clinical trials. So then when I wanted to conduct a clinical trial, it's very important for me to understand when I'm going to compare this particular product to a standard of care. What would be my standard of care? If nothing is available as a standard of care, you are good. You always go with the particular product. Yes, that's efficacy, safety. You will go with the complete process, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is a typical randomized clinical trial process where you need to do it from the scratch, from initiation, that is recruitment, to the final end analysis. This is a randomized clinical trial process. Done. When it comes to real world data, imagine the situation if this particular data would have been covered somewhere in the world. Let's say data for medical records. The medical records would have been covered from India or China or somewhere in the other cities of the countries or the region, and all this data has been collated at one place. You are going to identify the particular disease patients which are already used in the market. I'm talking about because this product is not available in the market yet. So you're comparing the standard of care. Clear? So if you are looking for the standard of care which is already available in the market, you will come to know that which is the best standard of care which you need to conduct the clinical trials. That's first option, right? So next, when you if you wanted to conduct the clinical trials, which is very important, that you have to go through this. If the product is already available in the market, if it is in a post-marketing surveillance, if you conduct this particular studies or if you conduct this analysis through a medical records, you need not to conduct a post-marketing surveillance. You are going to do this analysis from the reports which has already been generated or the medical records which already been available in the hospital. You are just going to do that analysis for that particular analysis. Clear? If the product is yet to come into that market, this RWDD will help you to bring into the best level of designing and bringing to avoid as much as possible with the designing process into the clinical trials. If the product is already available in it, there is no escape. You can always look for the alternative approaches to conduct that study with the specific retrospective analysis which is already available in the market. Make sense? It can, like RWD cannot replace clinical trials always, until unless in certain situations or the product life cycle. Gita, hope I have answered for you.
Yes, sir. She replied back saying that it is clear and she thanked you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not okay. It's chat. Sorry, I didn't
Yes, sir.
read
Yes.
the messages.
Yes.
Fine, go ahead.
Uh, Now I would like to. So since I'm seeing the screen of you right in front of me, and if I want to pick up one thing, so I will pick up Avelumab, where it is approved based on the electronic health record as a data for historical control. So one thing that I'm interested to know is, so this Avelumab must be approved for some other indication for real world data to capture this data, isn't it, sir?
Yes. So if you read about this particular message, like Avlimab is already available in the market and actual randomized clinical trials are happened, and based on that only it got approved. However, when you read this information, used electronic health records data as a historical control for efficacy in its original marketing application.
Okay.
Okay, so they, if they wanted to conduct this particular study, like as per my knowledge, like Avlimab is already available for the tumor type. I don't remember it. Okay, recall. So in certain situations, what happens, you will be approved with the market, you conduct all the clinical trials and you come out of the market, you launch with the products. When the certain situations, the competitors also jump into that market and they suggest that we are more efficacious than you, then the reimbursement challenges comes up. So in this type of data, when you have this proper data, instead of conducting the study, looking at like I am more efficacious in the particular line of therapy or the specific biomarkers, you will always conduct that study. You will go back to the data. I would say that RWD is always a data. You will always go back to the data and check for this particular data if I'm able to do certain changes or the challenges which I'm able to support my competition, or support in the sense like go against with the competition. So this is the way that data will helpful for the next type of analysis or defending yourself for the specific actions.
Okay,
Got
sir.
it? So that's
Got it,
why
sir.
we have regulatory like the regulatory changes are happened when we get into that product, when the product launches into that market. Before launches, when the product gets into that market, we have certain exclusivity which will be given from the regulatory agency for data exclusivity, as well as with the product life cycle, the product span, the patents, what we call that as. The even we have around 5 to 7 years of data exclusivity also that will be granted for the particular product because of this reason. If you have the data which is open, anyone can do that analysis,
Okay.
right? And I can
Okay.
modify that for my requirement, and I can support that. I can use that as a defending data parameters, and I can bring into the new action with the products. Clear?
Okay. Okay. And it was quite surprising after listening to your presentation, because I do know that some part of the electronic healthcare, I mean, electronic medical
Health
records, that
records.
what we call it as EMR, are playing an important role in that. But it's very surprising to see that whatever the data that we are generating is used in multiple facets, as you have mentioned. Uh, can I ask you to please go back few slides where you showed that paradigm of things that are there by using the somewhere in the initial part of your presentation, sir? Some next slide, sir. Yes, sir. So I think this is really surprising to see that the basic data that gets captured on everyday basis on probably each and every hospital that we have is having wide implications, where you can see these are all with. But I would really like to know that what is the extent of the data that is being generated in a typical Indian setting being used for all this analysis, sir?
Right.
Because we here self are because to keep in front of you the realistic scenario, because we work in a healthcare setting, so all the healthcare settings are do have a database for running their hospital administration, but they're just confining to billing. They are just confined to creating a code for getting laboratory data, creating a code so that you can send the patient to a specific diagnostic like a CT scan or an X-ray. But when it comes to the implementation of this data for carrying out all this research, so where do you think is our country, sir?
So in terms of the data sets or the data analysis, nobody thought about this data or collecting this data and utilizing this particular data will be very helpful for the next generation. That's a problem where in India it's lacking, because even if you go to any particular, for a simple example of like rabies vaccine, pharmaceutical industries always uh, they don't know like how many vaccines they are supposed to manufacture. It's a typical question, right? So that's a business which they are looking at it. To understand that how many vaccines are there need to manufacture it, I need to know like one patient requires like one person or one bite would require minimum 3 vaccines. So like if it goes like Virorab, now we have like polyvalent and monovalent. These are the things which comes up. When it comes to the next situation, who would be bitten? If they get the bites, are they going to report somewhere? No, there is lacking. We, even if you go to the doctor, we just buy that particular vaccine and get administered. And even in the government hospitals also, if they're giving it for free, probably they might report it. And that information, how many vaccines they got it, that's it. But they are not able to talk about like how many bites happened and how many vaccines has been given to the single patient. There is a gap. So in India, still we need to there's a lot of room for improvement. And if we collect this information and if we go with this analysis, definitely India is going to become a great country in terms of the next level. However, we have completed like no, I won't say the completed, we are moving towards more in oncology and immunotherapies.
Yes,
not
sir.
in much in other treatments, I would say that. And WHO has also been recognized with the cancer registries whom we have it in India. But next question, like Kidwai Hospital, there are many hospitals within Karnataka, I would say that many hospitals who treat oncology patients, are they reporting? No. When they are giving with a particular treatment, and when they are going for positron emission tomographies, on what basis they go for the drugs, again the insurance, it in the particular information will be tapped from the insurance agencies. Are the insurance agencies are giving somewhere that this many insurance claims has happened for this particular tumor type, and this is the this many patients we have covered? No. So each and everything which is happening within India is at the level of silos, it's not been connected. So there is a gap, and definitely there's a room for improvement, and we need to go to that extent. But certain situations, let's say oncology, certain registries will have very good coverage within the hospitals. Let's say Kidwai, Tata Memorial Hospital, AIMS, and and even the Dibrugarh in Assam. So certain hospitals will have its very good coverage, and this particular data has been, I would say, recognized from the WHO and even the FDA or the regulations. So whatever the side effects which you report it on a regular basis, this particular side effects always been truncated or goes to aggregated to the next level to this particular registries. Each and every hospital and each and every diseases have registries, whether this particular small hospitals or the unique units which covers them and reports them, is a still there is a gap. Okay. But being a pharmacist who are working in the hospital, I think we need to bring in some data collection process properly within the hospital. Let's say this many doctors,
Actually.
it's a bit difficult with the, I would say, the resistance which comes up from the different angles. But at your level, definitely, if any student have been conducted with this many lung cancer, or not even the lung cancer, this many tuberculosis patients in the particular time period, definitely that particular data would evolve and goes to the next level. If we start from today, so definitely it's going to become the best database and we can cover it.
Yes, sir. Uh, Again, uh, that's very, very informative. And one more thing that I personally felt after listening to all of your presentation, or the way in which one single set of data can contribute to different facets of outcome. Um, uh, do you think creating a uniform database across at least hospitals that are specialized in terms of their infrastructure, if in case we can develop a database and that database is endorsed, because what I personally, my experience was, one hospital is having a completely different administrative database to that of the other. It depends upon who is the vendor that is selling them the database, and obviously they want to incorporate only those aspects that enable them to to run their administration better, rather than the rather than capturing the patient data better. So do you think creating a database, a uniform database across all the hospitals, and admit and making sure that you make it a mandate to run that database in all these hospitals could provide us good data regarding every aspect?
Absolutely, it's a very good and very valid and very important point. It's being a pharmacist, like we are between the role of the patient and the doctors. If you have a proper database, for a simple example, situation comes up, absolutely each and every hospital has its unique softwares, and that's why we go into the direction of called big data, and where it integrates the data from multiple data sources, multiple reports. And if you go with the US data set, as per my experience with like where we our company worked with, called APLD, that's called anonymized patient longitudinal data. So this 10 years ago or 15 years ago, that was in the same situation where we are in India, and they have started communicating to the doctors to collect that information and regularly maintain it to complete the specific what I call the treatment process for a particular patient. That evolved to this existence level of, I would say, like around 30 to 40% of the coverage of US is working with APLD. Okay, so this is the best action, I think, once in a time. In 2014 or 15, from AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, they approached the WHO or DCGI through WHO meetings, and they suggested this particular process, but due to the statistics and all those things, it didn't work out because of this one. It has happened in 2019 or 20 due to the this one, what I call COVID situation. So that didn't move out, and definitely, like, if we are able to go with the direction of understanding and collecting this information without much biasness, definitely this is going to become a very good important information or the data in the future. But what I had experienced in my hospital like long ago, there are a lot of resistance which happens due to the adaptability of the clinical trials, because certain treatments happens with the clinical trials levels as well. If the patient has been admitted and informed consents will be taken, and the trial drugs also will be given, and trial drugs will be hidden, so it won't be mentioned in the charts. Drug A has been given from so and so company. So that's the way also it's been given. So what is the drug A? Why it has been given? When it has been given? So certain things it doesn't come out. So when
Because
you're
of the
collecting
blinding,
that
it's
information,
difficult to.
certain I would say you have to have outliers as well.
Yes, sir. And there is a question from one of our delegate, Mr. Butt. He is asking you, sir, could you please give an idea to capture health economic data in terms of financial burden on patient for a prospective study
Okay,
in psychiatric disorder?
very perfect, clear. So I would like to go with the PubMed or Ovid. So this is the typical process. This is the way that typical queries which we get it from the pharmaceutical industries. Can you identify the specific data sources which are economic burden, and especially for the financial impacts where it has a cost benefits? Okay. Next, definitely with the psychiatric disease, and if we have any specific psychiatric disease, I can drill down to whether it's a depression or mania or unipolar, bipolar. In that way, I can go for it. If doesn't have it, psychiatric disease. So identify the specific set of diseases. What I need to do, you need to have a proper mesh terminologies, medical subject headings. In PubMed, you will have that mesh. Okay, if you can connect with me like offline also, I can help you out with that way. So we always go with medical subject headings. We create a query. We create a, I would say, the string. From that particular string, if I use it on the particular timelines, whether I'm looking for the articles or the publications within 5 years or within 10 years, and only with the reported publications or something like that, I'm going to list down all the publications which has happened for the financial impacts within psychiatric disease. Again, it comes to the, whether psychiatric disease you wanted to go for the particular diseases, you need to very clear, or just psychiatry, that's also fine. And I need to have a terminologies. For example, mm, let's say nose bleeding. Nose bleeding, I know as a layman terminology, it's a nose bleeding, but in medical terminology, it's epistaxis. Clear? So until unless if any publications would have been published only with epistaxis, you are not able to get it for nose bleeding. So we need to have a proper idea that is called medical subject headings, what we call that as mesh. We will apply that particular terminologies in the query, and I will identify all the data sources. Definitely, certain cleaning mechanisms has to be there in your file to understand what would be the best relevant. That screening should be there, then the validation and the data extraction process. So this is a general process which happens. So I use PubMed for as a biomedical literature database for this type of activities, and you have to go with the proper keywords. Definitely you're able to like shortlist this particular sources. Hope I have answered for you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
you can use multiple data sources as well, and PubMed gives the complete picture what we
Yes,
needed. It is publicly available as well, easily
yes.
available.
He replied back saying that he got his answer.
Thank you.
And probably the last question or the last but one question from my side. So, sir, since you are working at IQVIA, could you tell me any one short personal experience of yours where you use this real world data from this particular source, say, for example, electronic medical record from a hospital or some kind of claims database, either let it be from healthcare claim or a governmental claim, etc., where you got this data, and then you use this data to you use this data for any approval of a drug or a black box warning of a drug, anything, sir, out of your personal experience, so that we can understand the realistic situation. I mean, like, we know that we can sir, as you, sorry if I'm taking you wrong, but you said that we can be a master of our presentation but not the exact data of it. So keeping all this on paper applications aside, can you share any one small personal experience of yours where this data, where you extracted from this source, helped you in doing something in terms of regulatory or in terms of clinical?
Sure, definitely. So one of the experience which I'm able to recall over here is, let's say, one of the zolpidem, that is an sedative drug, okay, that leads to the side effect of sleep. Can you believe in that? It's like that particular product or the molecule is intended for sleep, and the side effect of that is sleep. It's not possible, right? So somebody
Yes.
has reported in that way, and this information, the client has come up with this, and see, somebody has reported as like sleep as a side effect, whether it is an typo, like instead of putting it under the indication, they might have put it under sleep, or what else, like what is that exact picture which they're talking about it. So we did a lot of research. Definitely it's intended for sleep, and it would be possible that it would extend the sleep hours. So that doesn't mean that they, definitely it's a terminology and extended sleep. So only mentioning that sleep would be a problem with the typo or the particular person who have been reported with that side effect, or there is a possibility that somebody would have been manipulated that information. So this is a typical type of query the client came up with it. So it's a bit difficult for us to look for it, because until unless you have certain publications has already been suggested that one of the side effects is sleep, and even if they talk about like sleep is one of the side effect, what's the proportions of cells slides, that how many patients would have been treated with this particular product, and how many people of that proportions would lead to sleep, it's difficult to suggest, right? So then what we did, this all the specific levels which we get it, like sleep, out of 10 articles you might get like only 2 articles which has side effects reported as sleep, and it's definitely extended sleep, not as an exact terminology as sleep. And definitely they suggest like the patients who have been admitted or been treated with this particular zolpidem have a side effect of sleep, and it extended the hours for like 4 to 5 hours. So we get that range, okay. But in the reported the query, they have not mentioned it anything on that. One way that would have been not been properly recorded, we can definitely tell it's wrong. No, we need to go to that extent of suggesting that is there any other way that we can go for it. We looked into social media. Is anyone talking about the patient report outcomes? So is there anyone is talking about the sleep? Then we got the complete list. Zolpidem is a very good drug, and it gets me a proper sound sleep and everything they talked about it. One of the instances, one patient has reported in such a way that I'm taking these medications, I'm getting very good sleep, but at 10 p.m. my nurse wakes me up and gives me this drug. Sorry, before that, I have been what you called done with the surgery, and in post surgery I'm in the hospital and I'm taking a good nap, and nurse comes with this particular product, gives me that product, and I take this medication through water. After that I don't get sleep. Okay, so this is a typical way that particular person has given it, and the patient has taken zolpidem, and this is a patient reported outcome. So if you go for it, that means zolpidem is intended for sleep, but you're not getting the sleep for one patient. So we have to rely upon all these factors to come up with that situation. Why that would have happened? Because the patient is already into that particular sound, I would say the sleep cycle. And if they get into that like stoppage of that cycle, that doesn't get into that particular remission, that gets into that remission, and they don't get that proper sleep. That's one of the side effects. I won't say it's a side effect. It's a typical characteristic of the sleep cycle. So because not for the side effect of the product, so we need to ignore that. So if you go into that direction and looking at amalgamation of all the data sets, and we provide that query as suggesting that it would be a typo, because until unless they mention it like it is a sleep, until unless if they mention it like extended sleep or breakage of sleep, it's not very clear, right? So though they went into that particular hospital to check for it, ultimately that person or that is a nurse who has reported it, she was not been into that hospital, she doesn't work in that hospital, so that particular report was kept under as an outlier. So this is a typical example what I had been experienced for a particular query,
Okay.
though I have
Yes.
explained it a lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir. And probably the last question, sir. I really don't. There is one more question, sir, from in the chat box. Can you give your comment on the recent incidence of cold reef cough syrup, which found to produce adverse drug reactions? Actually, not adverse drug reactions. I think a lot of people died because of the harmful diethylene glycol that was present in there, who got hospitalized, and comment with regard to it. Can you give your comment on the recent incidence of cold reef product and comment with regard to HEOR that was asked by Professor Sivaram?
Great. So thanks. So this is a recent things which has happened, and I would say it's a bad event which has happened to the India level. And when it comes to the particular directions of looking at the proper analysis, the molecule is already available in the market and the side effects are also being dealt with it. But when it comes to the particular syrup, why it has happened that it's an adverse event, I won't say when it's a side effect, it's an adverse event. The particular drug gets into the kidney and for an that led to the death of the many children. So where it has been gap, because as per the government standards it is suggested that there is no proper clinical testing or proper testing, they just mentioned this as testing. So proper clinical testing would have happened definitely at that molecule level, but probably there is a possibility of looking at the this one. I would say the excipients or the manufacturing level that would lead to this particular side effect, not properly formulated to suggesting the excretion of that product, and that led to the death of this patient. And still, this is in discussion. So when it comes to the HEOR, we have a proper data set or the proper information at the clinical level. When it comes to the formulation level, we don't have much. Correct? What is a particular product which is available and how it has been manufactured, and what are the specific excipients which has been considered for the treatment purpose. So that level of data is gap. So if we have all to that extent of understanding, this is a level of manufacturing should be done, and this is a level of testing which has been conducted in the back level. So definitely we are able to support for it. At this stage, only thing comes up is the bad mark on the particular pharmaceutical industry, and it's a great, I would say, it's a bad event on the Indian context for the pharmaceutical industry because of lack of data and also proper, I would say, improper management of the manufacturing cycles, also possibilities.
Okay, sir. And probably we'll finish off with this last question, sir. Uh, to my understanding, so since you are working in IQVIA, so this company gets data from its clients where it is expected to carry out a research that is of interest of the client. So it extracts data given to them and then process the data and meets the clinical needs, whatever that is given by the client. So may I know what percentage of data that you get on a yearly basis, or what percentage is actually of that of Indian, sir, and what percentage is actually of that of abroad?
Okay, I'll explain it to you. So IQVIA is a, I would say, it's a consulting firm. And if you go with the business, consulting is a very small percentage out of the total business. And now we have IQVIA as part of clinical, the Quintels as well as IMS Health. So that has become the IQVIA. IMS Health was a, complete data-oriented consulting firm, and Quintels is a clinical trial big CRO. You know that. So now we have everything, all the data, the patient-related data, and the sales data with the pharmacy levels, everything we have it. So when next question comes up, client gives us the data, so there's a slight changes. Slight gives the money for the data.
Okay.
Okay, if they, because client doesn't own the data, because they don't want to own the data until unless the clinical trials if they have conducted with it, that particular data laying at with the particular CRO where they are doing the CDM, that is clinical data management. So that's the way that pharmaceutical industries works. They outsource this particular process and conduct this analysis and get that analysis done, and whatever the way that report is required for the dossiers or anything which for the submission, that will be go to that extent. When it comes to the data what we have currently, We have like pharmacy data, hospital data, and longitudinal patient data, claims data. These are all the specific data sets which I am aware about it. There are multiple data sets which are available within house. When it comes to the percentage of the projects for India and abroad. So I work mainly for the European markets. Earlier, I used to work for Asia Pacific. I used to work for all the markets earlier. So now we have organization restructure. Now we work mainly on the EMEA, that is on that is European and Middle East and African countries. The next question point comes up: what is the proportion between the data and the like Indian data and abroad data? I would suggest you, when it comes to the Indian pharmaceutical clients, mainly rely upon Indian data, and the European clients, usually the registered European clients or the US, always rely upon the data from the other countries. With respect to the data, we don't have rich data, to be frank with you, and like we don't properly collect that information. Even if we collect that information, that is not, I would say, standardized to the national level. So that is a gap where we are in currently. Imagine the situation like pharmacy data. Like US has 95% coverage, India has around 20 to 30%. So definitely the coverage is very difficult and different. If we go to a particular pharmacy, they don't ask for me like why I'm asking, like why I'm taking these medications. When they dispense it, they don't definitely ask for it. They don't have time. And even if they spend time on it also, who is going to compensate for it? Not possible, right? So that's why
Yeah.
IQVIA collects the data only from certain pharmacies, chain pharmacies. Okay, and they compensate for certain values, and that particular data will be projected to the national level. When you project it to the national level, definitely there are gaps, right? For example, like 30% of the pharmacies has given paracetamol tablets of like 1,000 tablets, and that particular 1,000 tablets multiplied by 70% of it. So that doesn't give the exact picture when I'm going to do the analysis, and which indication, how that has been come up, and which doctors has prescribed. No, there is a lot of gap in India. So that's why we don't much rely upon the Indian data. And to the extent of analysis, when we comes to, whenever we get any query, analysis will happen always from the data. When it comes to the data, not necessarily always with these data sources. It is secondary data as well as in-house data sets. Secondary data comes in, that is nothing but SLR, that is systematic literature reviews or strategic literature reviews. This is the typical data or the information where we collect it. Hope I
Okay.
have answered to that
Yes, sir.
extent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for clarifying me on a lot of aspects because this, to my little knowledge that I have, so majority of the research that is happening worldwide is purely based on these, what do you call, pharmacy data or the claims
Yes.
databases, especially if you look into the, to my minimal understanding, US relies a lot on their health claims databases because their health insurance is a mandatory. So whatever they pay comes to return back to them. So they're doing a lot of research based on that data that they are generating. And I think there will be good days ahead in India where we can also access data from multiple sources.
Right. Yeah, Varsana is one of the company which I'm aware about it in India. They're doing like external, I would say, like tremendous work in
Okay.
India, but still they're facing with the data sets. That's a problem.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, sir. Once again, we thank you for accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time with us, understanding, trying to make us aware of all these aspects as far as health economic research outcomes are concerned and how important data generation or data management is for this health economics research. So with this, we came to the end of the 1 week faculty development program that was organized by our institute, Chebrol Hanmai Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences. We thank all the participants for taking an active part during the 6 days. And I would request the speaker and audience to please give me a short period of time so that I can propose this vote of thanks as we came to the end of it. At the outset, a very big thanks to the management of our Chebrolo Hanmai Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences for providing us all the necessary resources for carrying out this faculty development program because we thought it is essential for all the faculty members out there to know about the advancing concepts in pharmacy practice. So a very big thanks to our management. I also thank our principal, Dr. S. Vidyadhara, for making sure that all the resources are allocated in such a way that we can plan this in a well structured and well versed manner. A very special thanks goes to the head of the department, Dr. Valluru Ravi, who planned this faculty development program. He approached to all the speakers, made sure that he got their time and make sure that he arranged all these 6 lectures in such a way that everybody can spend their quality time here without any overlaps or without anything. Very big thanks goes to the Department of Pharmacy Practice and also all the other faculty members of Chebrol Hanma Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, especially the IT department of Chebrol Hanma Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, who made sure that all the online platforms are made readily available, transferred to all the speakers, transferred to all the delegates so that they can easily log into the sessions, participate, and then leave their valuable feedback. And last but not the least, I thank all the delegates who registered for this 1 week program. I hope you got your time's worth out of it. And I thank all other allied faculty who gave their efforts in conducting this program. Thank you once again. And I also request the delegates to please wait for 3 to 4 days because we are having a 2-3 day holidays on the account of Diwali. So once the festival of Diwali is completed, we can start processing the certificates and provide you with all the participation certificates that you went through in this 1 week. Thank you all. Thank you once again. And with this closing note, we are ending this session. A very big congratulations to all the delegates and very big thanks to all the members who made this possible. Thank you all.
Bye everyone. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.